Hello, everyone. This is Eleanor Rigby. I was sitting here in my favorite armchair this morning, the one with the floral print that's faded nearly to white where the sun hits it every afternoon, and I found myself staring at my hands. They aren't the hands I remember. They're mapped with blue veins and spotted like an old mat. And my wedding ring, the one Thomas placed on my finger in June of 1964, slips around my knuckle now because the flesh has simply decided to go elsewhere. I looked at that ring and I thought about the passage of time, how it sneaks up on you like a fog until you wake up and realize you're standing in a different world than the one you started in. If I hadn't learned the hard truths about what it means to grow old before I actually got here, I think I would have lost my spirit entirely. I would have let the bitterness take root. Before I tell you this story, please subscribe. I want to pass this wisdom down before I am gone. You know, when you're 50, you feel like you've reached the summit of the mountain. You think you can see everything clearly. But let me tell you the truth. 50 is just the beginning of a very long, very steep descent if you aren't careful with your heart and your health. Back in the late 90s, when I turned 55, I thought I was invincible. Thomas and I were finally through the thick of raising the children. We had a little bit of money in the bank, and we spent our weekends driving up the coast, windows down, listening to the tapes we'd kept since the 70s. We felt like we had all the time in the world. We laughed at the idea of old folks. We weren't them. We were still us. But then the years started to chip away at the edges of our lives. It starts small. You forget a name. Your knee makes a sound like dry leaves crunching when you walk down the stairs. You ignore it. You think I'm just tired. But the harsh reality of getting old isn't about the wrinkles or the gray hair. It's about the shrinking of your world. I remember a Tuesday in November about 15 years ago. It was raining. One of those cold, gray Pennsylvania rains that gets into your bones. Thomas was sitting at the kitchen table trying to open a jar of pickles. I can still hear the sound of his breath, that frustrated huff, and then the clink of the jar hitting the floor. It didn't break, but he just sat there looking at it. His hands, which had built our back deck and carried our babies, couldn't open a jar. He looked at me and said, "Eleanor, I don't recognize the man in the mirror anymore. He's a stranger who's moved into my house and started breaking things." That was the year we realized that aging is a series of small, quiet funerals for the versions of yourself you used to be. It wasn't easy. In fact, it was the hardest decade of my life. We fought more that year than we did when we were newlyweds. Time was frustrated that he couldn't keep up with me on our walks, and he was angry that I was coddling him. As he put it, we didn't have a penny of patience for each other. One night, after a particularly nasty argument about whether we should sell the big house and move into something smaller, I screamed at him that he was becoming a grumpy old man. He looked at me with eyes that were so full of fear, not anger, but fear, and he whispered, "I'm just trying to hold on to what's left of me, Eleanor." Young people today might not understand this, but the hardest part of getting old isn't the physical pain. It's the invisibility. You walk through the grocery store and people look right through you. You become a ghost while you're still breathing. We felt that. We felt the world moving faster and faster, with its new gadgets and its loud music, and we felt like we were standing on a pier watching the last boat sail away. We almost let that isolation drive a wedge between us. We almost spent our final years in separate rooms, nursing our own resentment, but experience has taught me that you have to fight for the light when the shadows get long. One evening, Thomas took my hand, those shaky, thin hands, and he told me we can't stop the clock, but we can stop the rot. We had to decide every single morning to be kind to the strangers we were becoming. We had to learn to laugh when we forgot why we walked into a room. We had to learn that our value wasn't in how much we could produce or how fast we could run. But in the history we shared, think about that. In all my 80 years, I've realized that the warning I have for anyone over 50 is this: your body will betray you, and the world might forget you, but your character and your partner are the only things that will carry you through. You have to understand that marriage in your later years isn't about the grand gestures of your youth. It's not about the roses or the fancy dinners. It's about who is going to hold the tissue when you cry because you can't. Remember your grandson's birthday. It's about who is going to look at your scarred, aged body and still see the girl you were in 1964. Modern dating, from what I see on the television and hear from my nieces, seems to be about finding the perfect match. But let me tell you, there is no such thing. Love isn't a feeling you have. It's a decision you make every morning when you wake up and see a person who is just as scared of the dark as you are. In the past, we stayed because we knew that if we left, we'd be leaving a piece of our own soul behind. We valued loyalty over personal growth because we understood that you grow best when you are planted deep in the soil of another person's life. You have to prepare yourself for the silence of old age. Your friends will pass away. Your children will be busy with their own lives. If you haven't built a foundation of friendship and sacrifice with your spouse, that silence will be deafening. It will swallow you whole. I promise you, the money you're saving for retirement matters much less than the memories you're making today. Don't wait until you're 70 to say the things that need to be said. Don't wait until your legs give out to take that walk. The harsh reality is that time is a thief. It steals your strength, it steals your friends, and eventually it steals your breath. But it cannot steal the love you've poured into other people. That is the only thing that remains. My late husband used to say that we were like two old trees in the woods. Our branches might be brittle, but our roots were so tangled together that even the strongest wind couldn't pull one up without the other. So, if you're over 50, listen to an old soul. Start practicing patience now. Start being vulnerable now. Admit your fears to your partner. Don't let pride keep you from admitting that you're scared of getting old. When you share that fear, it loses its power. We spent so many years trying to be strong for each other that we forgot how to be soft. Don't make that mistake. Be soft while you still can. I wish for you a life where, when you look at your hands in 40 years, you don't just see the age. I hope you see the work you did, the people you held, and the life you didn't just endure, but truly lived. Loyalty isn't a burden. It's the greatest gift you can give yourself. It means you'll never have to face the sunset alone. Thanks for listening to An Old Soul. Subscribe, share this with someone you love, and cherish them while they are here. The clock is ticking, but the heart doesn't have to grow old if you don't let it. Would you like me to draft a similar memoir script focusing on a different life stage, such as the early years of marriage or dealing with career loss?